The mysteries of brain function. To perceive, to act, to think, to reflect, to memorize, to decide, to speak, to feel, to read, to write, to learn, to walk, to dream. None of this is possible without our brain. Since its creation, researchers at the Brain and Spinal Cord Institute have been at the origin of major discoveries on the functioning of the brain, its development and its networks. All these discoveries are the breeding ground for the progress of neuroscience. Understanding these mechanisms in the healthy brain forges the hypotheses that will be posed in the pathologies that disrupt its functioning. They will also be essential to understand the functions of our brain in a normal context to improve our daily life. Neuroscience. Why? Scientific research allows us to know a little more every day about the brain, the seat of cognition, memory, emotions. Why seek to understand the brain? For at least 4 reasons. Philosophical, because the brain is the organ that perceives, thinks and acts. It is therefore he who makes it possible to give meaning to existence. Sociologically, the brain is indeed the conductor of the organization it manages while managing itself. It is therefore he who is responsible for our behavior, and therefore for our interactions with the individuals who make up society. Scientific, since the brain gradually reveals the secrets of how it works. We therefore live in an exciting time to understand the genesis of our intellectual faculties and our emotions, and therefore the motor behaviors that are its expression. And finally medical, because the sick brain is beginning to be understood. Whether neurological Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, etc. or psychiatric depression, schizophrenia, autism, OCD, etc. diseases. The scientific advances made in recent years are spectacular. However, knowledge is still scattered and fragmentary. We are therefore only at the very beginning of a scientific adventure full of promise. The why and the how of the sick brain are within our reach. Alongside palliative treatments, better knowledge of the molecular mechanisms of cell death and the various forms of nerve cell repair should allow the development of treatments preventive, curative and restorative. Understanding how the brain works and how it malfunctions is possible today. Recent progress in neuroscientific disciplines finally makes it possible to predict the therapies of tomorrow. Brain plasticity at any age. Our brain connections are dynamic and constantly changing to integrate our life experiences and learnings. The study of this cerebral plasticity is a field of study in which researchers at the Brain and Spinal Cord Institute are pioneers. Alberto Bacci's team studies the microcircuits of the cerebral cortex, in particular the synapses between different types of neurons, leading to specific circuits of the cerebral cortex. In particular, she succeeded in deciphering a very precise cellular mechanism controlling sensory cortical plasticity, the basis of our ability to learn skills, which is very active in childhood. Reading and vision. In terms of learning to read, Professor Laurent Cohen's team has deciphered the organization of the connections between the word and language recognition regions, but also the reorganization of the visual regions to bring together distinct expert skills such as reading words and reading music. In the field of visual perception, the researchers also demonstrated a major reorganization in the brains of people born blind, whose visual cortex supports cognitive functions unrelated to vision. The frontal lobe, conductor of the brain. The study of frontal functions conducted by Professor Richard Levy enables us to understand how our most complex behaviors are developed and controlled, such as decision-making, planning, reasoning, creativity, moral judgment or social interactions. A thorough knowledge of the frontal lobes is also essential to better treat the many neurological and psychiatric diseases that affect these regions: Alzheimer's disease, stroke, head trauma, depression, schizophrenia, etc. Decision-making. What are the brain mechanisms that underlie motivational processes? The team led by Matthias Pesiglione, Jean Donizot and Sébastien Bouret combines complementary approaches to identify how costs and benefits are represented in the brain, how the arbitration between them is operated by cognitive control, how this is biased by emotions and fatigue or in pathological conditions and their treatment. In particular, they demonstrated the role of mental fatigue on the impulsivity of our decisions and identified the first processes set up in our brain when we evaluate several options when making a decision and how we compare them in order to make a choice. Brain ID card. Its weight. About 1.3 kg. The brain is made up of 2 right and left cerebral hemispheres, joined by the corpus callosum network of fibers, and the cerebellum, a sort of small archaic brain present at